Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with Us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Courtney Staples, and with me is Daniel Quinn, as well as our guest, Jonnie Law. And on today's episode, we're going to be finishing this prompt from patron Kaiser by reconciling the twist and introducing factions, sort of, and building out a main quest line. But given that this is part 2 of a 2-part series, I do recommend that you listen to the first one if you haven't already. Otherwise, you're probably going to be pretty lost when we start talking about robot propaganda films and occult super soldiers. But before we get into that, I want to remind you that if you'd like us to build your world, you can go to worldbuildwithus.com, where you can fill out a form to submit a prompt. And within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you'd like to connect with us on social media, we do have a YouTube channel where you can smash those like buttons and subscribe and all that. We're also on Twitter at Let's Worldbuild. Or if you'd like to chat with us more directly about, for example, how little we know about diesel engines, you can join our Discord server through the link in the description and on our site. If you're feeling particularly generous and would like to support the podcast with your hard-earned dollars, like Kaiser's been doing, you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/worldbuildwithus. As a patron, you'll get extra goodies like bonus clips that don't make it into the final cuts, patron exclusive episodes called the Aphid Lounge, 2-part world building series for your prompts, access to a patron only Discord channel, and more. So go check out our Patreon page if any of that sounds interesting. And with all of that out of the way, let's get back into this Earth of 1,000 engines. At the end of last episode, we rolled a twist, which was cults are involved. So Daniel, could you kick us off here with your reconciliation of that twist?
So, I mean, I wouldn't call my thoughts on it a reconciliation so much as an explanation, in the sense that, and granted, this is if someone has a better idea, I'm all for it. In the sense that when we talked about movie studios potentially being important, I thought perhaps these cults really are the movie studios with their propagandistic intent, whether the intent is good or bad. So, you know, in a way, when you think of like influencers of any kind throughout history, they tend to be this insular group that is very cultish in their behavior. So I could see various movie studios who have an agenda to maybe serve a larger entity like a government, you know, being cult-like in their behavior. So I guess I took it somewhat metaphorically.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that certainly makes sense. I could see, like, you know, some very extreme movie studios coming out of this.
Yeah.
Or, in addition to the maybe more benign, typical ones that you might see.
Mm-hmm. I'd be curious to see what everyone's studio will be, because I bet that will start reinforcing the notion of a cult, you know?
Yes, yeah, I'm sure. So, John, what about you? How did you deal with this twist that cults are involved?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention at all. I've been reading about diesel engines for the past 10 minutes. I would like to open up with an acknowledgement, though, and we'll lead into my cult.
Okay.
That I did make an error last one, and I did at somewhere in the middle of the episode, I did say something about diesel engines producing steam, which they do not. It is completely combustion. They do have exhaust. And diesel can be used to feed steam engines, but diesel engines themselves do not produce steam. It's not how the power, it's not where the force comes from. It's from the combustion, which I did say earlier. Anywho, I'm just the type of person, I like to acknowledge my own ignorance and then learn from it. That being said, in my studying, I thought of the idea of what if our so the Decobots are the US ones, right? That's the super soldiers, or did we go with dieselpunk for them?
I don't know if we ever gave the US ones specific names, because, like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we landed on the super soldiers on the US side are purely robotic, or if they're like a cyborg, like augmented human.
We did say that they were augmented humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. They learned from not their quote unquote mistake of allowing the Decobots. So the Decobots are the ones that are sentient robots in the European and North African and Western Asian areas.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because they're the ones that are artistic, and the whole term is Art Deco plus, you know.
Yes. Yeah. And then the Diesborgs are the American super soldiers. Just so I can say the joke that there is one platoon of them called D's Nuts, and they're just psychopaths.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's low hanging fruit, but I will take it and devour it. That being said, I would say the Decobots, there is a cult of them that have created biodiesel to fuel themselves. And they're kind of like they're not the friendly artistic ones. They're kind of bloodthirsty because they are running out of sources of biodiesel there. So they are actually feeding on the super soldiers that Japan and the United States send to battle in this area.
Oh, damn.
So it's like there's like an evil cult. Once again, gotta get back to that dark horror aspect that was in the prompt. But there is a darker side to these sentient robots, and maybe they came as a counter to the hippy dippy artsy ones.
I wonder if like they were exposed to something different at the start when they gain that sentience, or if it's the biodiesel itself that's like messing with them.
They got a taste for it, yeah, and they're just
right.
Yeah, it feels like we had that the biodiesel is that creepy stuff that the Nazis uncovered, right? That's been used.
So yeah, maybe that unlocked it because we said that that's like the blood of either the like Ark of the Covenant style or like the Atlantean or it's some
because it seems like it's tainted each faction in some way.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
So maybe it unlocked that, and then they discovered, and they had to start creating it themselves. Inorganically. Well, not inorganically, but I mean, they had to manufacture it.
Does that mean that particular movie studio is just full of like coked out biodiesel drunk Decobots?
I don't know if that's actually if they're part of the movie studio. I think they're like a guerrilla faction that exists outside of the studios. Because I have another thought for this movie studio that I want to champion, or actually studios. They're two rival studios. But we'll get to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see them being too busy for the creation of this meaningless art that others make.
Although maybe they're making like YOLO / prank videos. Or like, watch me eat these 12 humans. Like and subscribe. Oh, sorry. Like and subscribe.
There you go. That's much better.
That's bad.
So I've got to say that I went in a much, much different direction with my reconciliation than both of you did. So last time we established that the Nazis are gone, wiped out, no longer in the picture for whatever reason. And we also established that there's this extremely powerful new diesel technology that's being worked on in the robot land of Euro-Asia Africa, I guess, which would be powerful enough to launch spaceships. So naturally, I'm thinking that a sect of occultist Nazis had escaped using a predecessor technology and have in fact established a Nazi moon base on which on which they are carrying out horrific experiments as Nazis tend to do.
That's perfect. So little do the Decobots realize their dream of going to the moon is full of Nazis.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, that if they do manage to get up there, it might not be as peaceful a mission as they expected.
And I like how you did skirt around my saying that like Nazis are wiped from the earth by putting them on the moon. So done.
Technically, they're not on the earth anymore.
That's right.
Slow clap for you, Courtney.
I think all these reconciliations align. Like on the one hand, we know the movie studios have an underlying cultishness to them. We know that every faction's been tainted by this biodiesel crap, and there's Nazis on the moon.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
Just another day on this beautiful blue dot.
So yes, moon Nazis. And on that note, last time for our factions, we decided that we would instead make movie studios and maybe come up with a film or two that they've worked on, since so much of this world revolves around propaganda films and the like. So John, could you go into your factions, I guess, sounds like?
Yeah. There are two rival studios, one in the United States and one in Japan. And what they do is they basically make a form of snuff films. Where they are, it's to highlight their super soldiers and to make the opposing super soldiers look weak. So in the case of Japan, they kind of take a hint from our modern day Korean movie makers and doing the Squid Game kind of setup, where they take a prisoner of war of a super soldier from like the D's nuts, and they put them under these crazy games and whatnot, and like make them do insane different challenges and whatnot. But ultimately, they're going to get killed, and they make a movie around that and show that to their populace to kind of say like, look how more powerful and how better our occultist super soldiers are. Whereas in the United States, it's more of a like kind of like speed run thing where they like show the American Diesborgs going through and just wasting as many people as they can. Because America, we got to do it bigger and better. So it's more focused on mass casualties, whereas the propaganda films from Japan are more focused on showing the weakness of the singular American.
Nice. So it's kind of like reality, documentary sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely reality. But they're shown in theaters, like they're presented as films.
Yeah,
in the sense, and they do make these, and like I don't know if they actually, like, I doubt they film them on location. I bet they're still on sets, but they try to make it look like they're in Tunisia or they're in Luxembourg or whatever the remains of that, and then pass that off to because the populaces of both these nations don't actually know what's going on over there.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, meanwhile, the robots are creating these, like, recreating the world and having their own renaissance. But then they're like, no, it's a hellscape. It's a fucking hellscape. This is what happens. And this is how we're controlling it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that parallels the classic use of film during that actual period. So I think that's perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. I could even see like obviously the constructed sets, but I could also see both sides, or especially I guess the Japanese side with their reality show type of thing, like basically just taking landmarks from other continents and like bringing them over and using those as sets, kind of in a parallel to how the Nazis just like took a shit ton of art from all over the place and hoarded it.
No, I like that a lot. There's like literally like the top of the Eiffel Tower that they just put in like the background. Like, they impale someone on it. Like,
Oh, wow.
ChatGPT tells me that a number of films during the World Wars played a propagandistic role and were very important as early as 1916.
Mm-hmm.
Such films as The Battle of the Somme, is how you say it, S-O-M-M-E, The Kaiser, The Beast of Berlin.
Oh, look at that.
This was much later in 1942. Casablanca, The Advance of the Tanks in 1917, which were all meant to, I guess, glorify war. Lovely.
Yes. Do you envision any like sort of audience participation in either of these film setups?
I think they would definitely like Rocky Horror style, like boo at certain parts, and then like throw like mustard seeds to represent the mustard gas that the American soldiers being suppressed by, and I think there's definitely like they have special late night showings, and like maybe they even like it's special like opening nights. Maybe they actually like bring out a POW or something, and like let everyone stab them or something.
Yeah.
Like, really just dehumanize them.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. I like it. It's horrible, but it makes sense.
I would like to now read a quick section from Sigmund Newman's Permanent Revolution, The Total State in a World at War, regarding public opinion and propaganda.
Let me get my my bourbon and a cozy blanket.
Yes, I shall try to do this all in one breath, as was suggested by my friend DQ. Equality is best stabilized in the tabula rasa, the point of illiteracy. And stratified society cannot be handled easily. It traditionally have to be destroyed. In this respect, the USSR are in the unique position. Her people have begun to fuck, I can't do this. All right.
It's a valiant effort.
Yeah, how to try hard? My face got hot.
It was the military nature of it that just sickened to your core.
Yeah. It's internal revulsion.
Oh, thank you for that attempted reading.
I might try again later.
Yeah. Pick something especially dry and controversial.
I'll keep looking.
Yeah.
So Daniel, what about you? What's your film studio looking like?
So I thought, since some documentaries are just kind of, they weren't as common, but they were a thing too. I was thinking that there is a film studio that consists of a coalition of guerrilla artists somewhere in the war-torn Euro-Africasia, like you said, region. And they are working on a documentary based on found footage that was discovered when the weapon, the biodiesel weapon, was originally uncovered. And so they are trying to tour the world to find evidence and film footage to piece together this mystery and to expose the underlying actors who are perpetrating the war forever. And so I imagine this being conducted in part by some of the, art decobots, but also possibly by humans who are suffering through the war. So it's like a coalition movie studio that's very indie.
I like it. I can also see that becoming kind of like a found footage horror movie,
Yes.
depending on like which way you want to go with it. Because we did talk about how there's like the weird occult stuff and like the blood of Atlanteans or
Yes.
something.
Because I imagine like they're putting this together, but perhaps the way it's discovered is, the filmmakers are murdered, right? And so the watching of the film is after it's incomplete. They got too close to the Nazi moon revelation, right? And perhaps the rival factions in Japan and America, they also have their own reasons for stopping this film from being made. And so the watching of it in itself is the horror.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Are they like basically anti-war propaganda?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely anti-war.
It's like the St. Clair witch files and like
Yes.
I could also like, depending on who gets their hands on the footage, I could see it becoming some like weird false flag reverse propaganda thing.
Oh yeah.
Like if one of the Warhawk sides gets a hold of it, then they could like edit it to show, oh, this is like proof of why we need to do this actually.
Right.
It's so dangerous out there and so on.
I mean, it would be interesting if the existence of this footage, say you're putting together an adventure or story, you could, instead of making the story center on the weapon and all of the dark secrets of the war, you can have it center on this footage and who possesses it, because however, the way in which this footage is revealed to the public is the real weapon, like you're saying. So it could be used to advance the propagandistic, goals of either state actor, or it could be something that the people look to as like the truth that sets them free.
Interesting.
Yeah. I know we're not at the main quest yet, but I could see this group being the ones that we follow during that. And like, depending on how, if it's run as a RPG or if it's written out, like depending on how the choices go that these people make, like that results in any number of endings.
Exactly.
And that could also, like I said, they could unite the multiple factions too. Like you could have, both a Decobot and a bloodthirsty Decobot and a Japanese super soldier and an American super soldier, but they all find this one thing that kind of says the truth and like how they are.
Yeah. Well, that would be neat, because then you could have like rival people that are working together.
Yeah.
And then they have to kind of like fight all the groups that are gonna try and stop them.
Yeah.
Maybe they're protecting a filmmaker, like a really what do you call it? Namby-pamby petite Decobot who is not made to harm anyone, and they have to protect him or her and get them.
Oh fuck! It's an escort quest. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Everybody loves this.
Yeah, it moves it just has to have movement that is slower than running, but faster than walking.
Yeah.
And stops to talk a lot.
All the time. Like anytime there's a landmark, they gotta stop and look at it. No, that is very cool though. And like even the fact that this group is traveling all over the world to find stuff like sets up for an interesting like globetrotting adventure quest, but also with those like horror elements and escape and running away from the things that are pursuing you.
And then plus with a Nazi space laser clock countdown, you gotta
Yep. Who knows what they're doing up there on that moon base? It could be anything. So yeah, I'm glad that neither of you went necessarily with the peaceful artsy robots, because I I decided to focus on those for my studio.
You can have those pussies.
So my idea stems from this film, one of my favorites, called Koyaanisqatsi, which is a experimental documentary that's it's just music and film footage. There's no narration, no plot, no dialogue, and you can probably find it online to watch. It's great. It's all about footage of the Earth and how humans have impacted the Earth, and I feel like that would be something that these robots would be interested in, based on what we talked about last time, how they're very peaceful and existential and really don't understand why people are fighting and so on. So I am picturing a group of robots over in the Europe, Asia, Africa area that have been wandering around taking footage of all of the devastation that's been caused, but also showing that regrowth is possible from that. So maybe they're starting to clean the rubble and plant new trees and flowers, and showing those kind of taking root and coming up through the soil, and showing how things can slowly improve over time, to prove to the world, like, it doesn't have to stay like this forever. There's room for change. There's room for growth. We don't need to keep blowing each other up. Please, let's just have a peaceful time and watch the sunsets for a while.
That's really pretty. I'd love to see it, but I can't figure out how to fucking spell it. So you want to help me out there a little bit? I'm like Koyaanisqatsi? What?
It is.
That's not part of that yet.
Yeah, I'll leave the name in the description too. But it's Koyaanisqatsi is Koyaanisqatsi. You got that?
Why? Oh, here. I mean, as soon as I did KOI, it just popped up.
Oh, okay.
Right there. Koyaanisqatsi. That's exactly how I thought it was. I thought it was 3 words this whole time.
Oh, no.
So I love the idea of them like replanting and the growth and whatnot.
Mhm.
And I would like to add that I don't know if you can hear this. It's an 8-bit version of Vivaldi's Four Seasons.
Oh, yeah.
Is what it's doing. Like they found the music,
Yeah.
the actual
Oh my
temperature
God.
or the yeah. So, but yeah, I just like the idea that they make this film and it has an 8-bit version of the Four Seasons by Vivaldi in the background,
Yeah, I could see that. Or like even
like the flowers blooming.
like following along with the actual Four Seasons.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Showing that there is, a death and a return to
Mhm.
life, and
Exactly. Maybe it could even be watched as a cycle. Like it starts and
Oh.
ends. It all flows together.
It's just a YouTube short, is what you're telling me.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Did I miss this, or is there a connection in their film to the dream of the Moon Project?
I didn't have that in there necessarily, but I could see that working. Like maybe it starts/ends with a shot of the moon.
Oh, and like their goal to go to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it unlocks the Moon Project because after this, gains traction and there becomes like this love of it and becomes like their kind of part of their not national but their cultural identity. Maybe the next stop is, well, let's get a better view of things. And
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Because I remember we talked about, at least I talked last time about, could they believe they could create peace if everyone could see the world from above?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I like that you said unlock the moon mission, as if it's like a Civ game and we're unlocking a tech tree, a culture tree or something.
The tech tree.
Yeah.
It's the cultural tech tree. If you want to win a culture, it's not the blue jeans and rock and roll music, but it's getting to the moon to see the world as it truly is. Just that lonely, precious, fragile blue dot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was, I can't remember who was, I mean, I think it's like Buzz Aldrin that brought it, or it might not have been him, it was some other astronaut, but saying that like they think there should be a rule that to be a world leader, you have to go out into space.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, to just see, like, he's like, they should grab them all by the scruffs of their necks and bring them into space and be like, look how fucking dumb you are for, fighting over stupid shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's like the classic Carl Sagan pale blue dot thing too, which is great.
Maybe it was Sagan actually that said that. But no, he's not. I don't think he ever went to space.
No, he did not. No.
I think he might have done high altitude, weightless. But why didn't they let him go to space? What the hell? What's my tax dollars doing?
He did die fairly young, so there's that.
That's true. Yeah, I guess it was the whole point where we weren't really doing the race was over. And we're like, yeah. The flag's on there. We won.
That's all we need. But yeah, that was my studio. I'm picturing them as like, I mean, they're robots, so I feel like they kind of all communicate well and work well together.
Mm-hmm.
See it as a very collaborative process, whatever group is doing this, and probably even like picking up people as they travel along making this movie.
Oh, it'd be cool if it's like a movie that never ends. Like it just keeps getting added onto and it keeps evolving and keeps getting edited. And like, it's kind of like a place on that thing that Reddit does, where it's like the weird like community board drawing.
Yeah, I'd actually thought about doing something like that with my capstone from grad school, which was a basically long music video about climate change, but it was just music and footage, and had thought about going back and like adding to it every so often or changing the footage as more stuff happens on the earth.
We fucked ourselves more and more
as we just ruin everything. No, but I haven't actually done that yet. But maybe sometime.
Might be a lot of work.
Yeah,
it also sounds like lead to some heavy depression on that note. It's like, oh man, it just keeps getting worse.
Like, how many times do you want to put Trump's face in it? Like,
no. Rub his face in it like a dog. Nope. Bad con man.
But yeah, do you guys want to move on to coming up with the main quest line?
I wonder if we should like revisit and make sure we have all our ducks in a row.
Yeah,
I know we would do that. We did that sort of last time, but because I'm trying to think, well, is there a particular antagonist that's emerged from this? We have a number of antagonists, but I mean, is there a central one? And just so we remember all the things that we have on the page, like, because we know we have in the grand scheme of things three main factions that are competing against. You've got America, Japan, remnants of this Nazi cult, right, that has established itself on the moon. We know that the artifacts they were searching for during the war were in part recovered by either faction, right, as well as by these biodieseled up bots that are in Europe that are not the peace-loving ones, but a separate faction, it seems.
Kill all humans.
Yes, so they're the ones that are a little extreme. And we know that there's these movie studios operating, two of them operating to keep the wars going in Japan and America, right? By featuring super soldiers. We know we've got this message of peace being perpetrated by the European robots or the Euro-Asian and African robots. And we know we have a guerrilla studio that's trying to make a documentary based on what happened with the biodiesel weapon, right? And this weapon is made from a civilization that in the past was destroyed, might be Atlantean, but it's like special fuel that makes the diesel engine even more powerful, right? And it could be used to make this rocket that will go to the Nazi moon. So that's where we have so far? Is that
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. I do also want to mention that in Kaiser's original prompt, he did kind of emphasize the dark/horror military aspect and said that the setting has to be heavily focused on the military. So I think it'd be good to go in that direction too.
Yeah.
So I have some thoughts on that. I would like to say that I think that the setting does take place in Eurasia, Africa, or Eurasia. Is that what we call it?
Something like that, yeah.
That general area is like, that's your world map. And that I think that both the Japanese and the United States, like the two rival film studios, they actually do work together in the sense to like both just to keep the war going. It's profitable for both of them. They can't destroy each other.
Right.
But they paint it like, it's like a rivalry like you would have with like football teams or sports ball, as someone mentioned in the Aphid Lounge. But so you have them as like, they're the bad guys. But I feel like going back to having the space Nazis be the BBGs, and they're somehow pulling some strings up above. I don't know how yet, but since they exist, I feel like that should be the final boss.
It raises questions too about, well, so like if the invention of this particular kind of new diesel engine that uses a special rarefied oil will give rise to this rocket that can go to the moon, how did the Nazis get on the moon in the first place? That's the question I asked.
Well, they might have already had it.
So they create.
That was my thought, that
Yeah.
like they had this technology. It probably hadn't been tested very much, and they might have only had like one rocket or something.
Oh, like
they,
there's Hitler there?
Hmm?
Is Hitler there? Are you saying Hitler's there, Courtney? He used the rocket to escape?
Oh my God. Do we have a space Hitler now?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that just seemed where you were going. Let me let you continue. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I could see them like using this as a last ditch effort to escape when they were almost being slaughtered. And
so Hitler.
Yeah, he killed his doppelganger, killed himself in his bunker.
Yes.
And the new Hitler, who is now Cronenberg Hitler, because he started taking the blood himself.
Cronenberg, yes.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yes.
Cronenberg.
Okay, that's perfect. And so then I think the way to get Kaiser's requirement that this be a military science fiction is really what he's asking for at the end of the day. Like, is in the quest, because it means the quest has to be military for the perspective of the military.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I think like, so the quest itself is that they're trying to gather these videos to like the anti-war propaganda, so to speak. Right. So obviously the two studios themselves are very much against this. So they're sending in the super soldiers to stop our heroes.
Okay.
But our heroes can also be ex-members of these super soldier groups that have now been enlightened, or or some kind of robot. I feel like the murderous robots need to stay as an enemy to all things biological.
Well, okay, so we can roll with this. So maybe two platoons that were deployed in classic war game style. Like there's no real threat, so they're kind of deploying these super soldiers just to make a show and keep the war going. They get deployed against each other in the middle of Eurasia, Africa, right? And they are in fact captured by the crazy robots and are going to be tortured and murdered. However, the good robots that are there set them free because they're part of the guerrilla film studio, right?
Yeah.
And then they all kind of form a party, realizing kind of the ambitions of each faction, and they start to work against them.
Yes. So they're like, basically the most of the platoon is wiped out, and it's left with, one or two people per side, and depending on what the players want to play as, obviously. But they're forced to kind of work together, sort of thing. And then you have like that rogue and paladin, hanging out together and like, there's tension, but we're a party. So we're all here to do the same thing. And they get enlightened that they're the pawns in all this. Does anyone know about the Nazis, or is that the last reveal?
I think that might be like the last, or like they might start finding clues about it on Earth, and then realize like, oh fuck, did they actually escape?
Yeah, because like I could see Courtney's filmmaker who's trying to make this super film, right? And then there's also my robot filmmakers who are piecing together bits. Like maybe the Courtney filmmaker is searching for that final shot of the rocket, but they don't know where that rocket is because it's been activated in the past by Hitler. So it's a question. So I feel like maybe they could work together because the found footage people know how to get there.
Okay, and they keep finding a trail of lederhosen. That they're like, wait a second, these are fresh.
So Daniel, you're saying that it's your guerrilla faction that finds these two like troops of soldiers?
Maybe. I mean, 'cause I feel like if they're fighting each other and they get like kind of waylaid by the crazy bots, I don't know what they are. I'm pretty sure those bots will probably just want to dismember them in various ways. Yeah. And so perhaps the other people in the area, maybe it doesn't have to be the good robots, but other like factions who are not aligned to the military, like break them free from there. Yeah. Maybe they need them for some other reason, and they turn out that by saving them, it all just helps at the same time. I don't know. I think so.
So I actually have a very clear-cut vision of this. Like the murder bots are like kind of the orcs of the world, where you just know they're evil, like they're whatever. And then you have also new platoons of super soldiers from either side coming in. So that's going to be a problem. And obviously they're going to try to rescue their own guys, but they want to kill the opposite one, and they have no qualms with killing the robots. And then beyond all that, you have the Nazi, like, puppet masters doing whatever. Like maybe they're shooting stuff back down from the moon. Or like, like somehow they're influencing
moon deposits.
Moon deposits.
I like that. Yeah, that they're doing something like maybe they were the ones who sent the biodiesel down in the first place to corrupt some group of robots.
Oh, that's very cultish.
Yeah.
DQ, can we make this a one shot? This sounds awesome.
It does. It does.
I don't like running historical fiction, so no.
Well, just pretend just make a new. It's fine.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't have to be a world war, and I can change everything about it.
And these diesel engines can create steam.
Yeah, as long as they can be clockwork engines.
Lodestone.
Not diesel, so there you go.
Does Lodestones produce?
Yeah, they can use Lodestones. That's fine.
I could see like deserters having created their own like little settlements in the mostly destroyed Eurasia, Africa. And that's probably who would like swoop in and save the people who are being slaughtered by the murder bots, which I feel like that as an opening scene to an RPG would be very intense if you start off like as a mixed kind of group of prisoners of these robots who are like, you see your compatriots being dragged away and like screaming and having their blood drained for fuel or something, and you're like waiting your turn, and then there's like an explosion or gunfire, and humans that maybe even you recognize swoop in and save you and haul you out, and from there the actual quest starts.
Maybe there are humans that have fallen in love with decobots. They're like metallicies. What do we call them?
Scandalous.
I'm going to come up with a good word for this, so I'll give you a second.
Take your time.
Is that the word? What's the opposite of phobe? It's philic. Add philic to it.
Yeah. Robophile.
Decophiles.
Decophiles.
Sounds horrible.
We keep moving on. I'll back burner that. I'll table that for a minute.
Yeah. So then that could be like your first session is kind of escaping that, and then next you could be introduced to these different people and learn about how they're all more or less getting along now, and the robots are all happy and artsy, and you start finding clues about something, or your guerrilla documentary filmmakers come in and are sharing what they've learned so far and sort of invite you to come along with them, or maybe just offer to go along with them.
So what I'm hearing is that the villain is Hitler.
I think that's true of most things, yes.
That's like the surprise villain at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's got like mutations and stuff, like you said, Cronenberg-esque.
Yeah, he should totally be like fucked up.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Major.
He's like oily.
Part of the moon.
Multiple heads.
He's been like bathing in the occult blood stuff, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then he could have it could be like a multi-stage boss fight. Where it's
like,
you have yet to see my final form. Achtung! And he like drinks the blood and
that's like the crap Hitler that I rendered earlier.
I was thinking about that. It could be a robot Hitler. He could be part robot. He could have been injured and they removed most of his body and replaced it with robotics.
Boiled them together again.
Yeah.
Wow. I knew I was drawing crap Hitler for a reason. My destiny.
It's the Abraham Lincoln Hitler from Rick and Morty. Adolf Ham Linkler, I think is his name.
Wow.
That show had some great ideas. I mean, fuck, Justin Roiland, but
the
show was good. It was mostly Dan Harmon, from what I understand. He's okay, I think, so far.
Everyone's horrible. Just get used to it.
Yeah. I think there was some controversy with Dan Harmon, but he like actually legitimately apologized and made amends, as far as I remember. I could be wrong.
You Googling Dan Harmon now? Meanwhile, I'm just listening to Vivaldi's Four Seasons 8-bit again. Oh, this is really cool.
So yes, Hitler/Robot Hitler is the final boss.
So I think as progression with bosses and through the story, I think the first issue would be the leader of the bloodthirsty Decobots, or the new faction. Mm-hmm. And then you could have different generals or commanders from the either super soldier factions.
Yeah.
You can have the world itself too be like, there's still parts in ruin. So
Mhm.
maybe and whatever like the fallout of the occult stuff that has been going on there, or spillage of the blood, like maybe it's affected animals and stuff like that. Just kind of add to that horror vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, like the last time we did talk about the ocean is fucked up
Yeah,
because of the occult/diesel pollution, and could see, like, yeah, weird, unpredictable things happening as you get closer to water sources.
and maybe they have to actually like cross over to different, like maybe
Yeah.
you start off in somewhere in Europe, but then you got to cross like the Black Sea or the Mediterranean Sea, like like
Yeah.
to get to Africa because that's where the rocket was. And then the last act would be they get the rocket, they go, and you're like, oh, but wait, there's more.
Mhm.
As you land your rocket, you see, the swastika burned into the dark side of the moon
Oh my god,
and the
yes.
towering Cronin Hitler.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that inclusion of the environmental horror.
Mhm.
Like, it makes me think back to, it's been a long time since I've mentioned this book, but, Roadside Picnic by, uh, the Strugatsky brothers,
Mm.
which then I think inspired the, Stalker games, and basically the stories that aliens had landed at certain parts of the earth and then just, like, left, but, like, left a bunch of their shit behind. Then the zones where they left their stuff behind is all super weird, and there are these, like, hazards that people learn about as they go in that can just, like, instantly kill you or do terrible things to you. So I could see it being like that, where there are all these very bizarre, unearthly hazards that they have to cross and contend with, and relying on, like, the other people that you've chatted with or are traveling with for this knowledge to get by safely.
So I actually had a cool thought going off what you're saying. Is that so? Say if this all started in like Europe, and we'll say like Central Eastern Europe, like Balkan states or something like that, and they had to actually make their way to Antarctica because that's where the rocket was fired from. So
Yeah.
you could go down through
Oh,
Africa, or you could go down through like China and like Indonesia and like to Australia, or you could go across like through Africa, like past Mali to like South America to get closer. Like, but at one point you're gonna have to cross oceans, which there are gonna be different problems, and maybe
Yeah.
the problems get more so the closer you get to Antarctica. So like if you stand mostly land based, go to Africa, you now have this huge swath of ocean to the Atlantic and Indian Ocean where they meet
Mhm.
to Antarctica. I do actually have a map up right now because I don't know geography that well.
me neither.
I don't want to be yelled at again for giving wrong information. But no, I really I do see this, and like each place could have different effects of war, different horrors of war left beyond it, and you could
Mhm.
also be picking up these different pieces of film or footage that show the truth, and kind of would be like your breadcrumbs and whatnot, and then and then obviously Lederhosen.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that idea a lot, that you can, like, start in a relatively central spot and then choose a path based on the information that you learn and what you think
Yeah.
is safest.
Party composition.
Yeah, yeah. And, like, could also see it being a very survival-oriented RPG where you have to, like, you can't just, stop in a town and buy a bunch of supplies. You're gonna have to be, like, scavenging a lot
Yeah.
as you
Yep.
go, and that could also be, tied into the military aspect of you're you're scavenging through ravaged battlefields and, like, mass graves and stuff.
Yeah. And like whatever, like oases that could still exist
Mhm.
possibly, and like South Africa or like South America or Australia maybe is mostly untouched, or like they could have those different kind of pockets.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of RPGs they don't all have this, but if we're looking at it from an RPG's perspective, it lets your world map really drive the action,
Mhm.
and then you can zoom in on particular scenes you want to run. But I think it's that easily working out.
Yeah. I'm thinking back now to the, interview that we had with Justin Alexander about his book, "So You Wanna Be a Game Master," and how he talked about, I think for some campaign, he had, like, a map basically set up and kind of photos taped together that he could point to, and I could picture something like that working for this
Yeah.
game where you have a map that's visible to everybody that they can, like, literally like put pins and string on to show where they're going and where they want to avoid, and keep track of where they found things or where they've heard that there's dangers or what have you.
And if it was to be played within the soon to be released ttrpg called OSR Plus, that is Advanced Old School Revival, you could have scene checks to show the traveling distance, which I will be releasing a video in due time about scene checks and putting them on 5e. But
interesting. Oh.
Yeah, no, I think it could be a really, really cool campaign to play out, like literally traveling across the world. And I could see like the party and the GM collaborating on, what happened to certain areas that aren't totally fleshed out. Like we know that the US and Japan are intact, and Africa, Asia, Europe are just kind of fucked, but like we don't know specifics really. And then of course there's South America, Australia, Indonesia.
I like Eurasia, by the way, first of all.
What did they call it in 1984? Or is it Eurasia?
Oh, as Oceania.
Oceania. Oh yeah, Oceania.
It was a crossword clue the other day.
There was a bunch of them. There was Oceania and what was the other ones?
There's East Asia.
Eurasia and East Asia. You're right. Yeah. And the disputed territories.
I also think it'd be another route you could go is you could go through what is now Russia, because it's mostly going to probably be like, it's going to be harsher environmentally, but like it's not going to be that many people there besides like the Japanese oil farmers, and then cross the Bering Strait and then go down the wasted west coast of the United States, which is like once again, like it'd be like a way to avoid patrols, so to speak, because it's all dead land to get to the I feel like South America is like the golden land. Like it's the one place that was unaffected by any war and is actually thriving right now.
Also a place the Nazis like to hide in.
Yes.
There you go. Argentina. There you go. That's fine clues there.
Yeah. No, I do like that route because it's like longer by land, but it would ultimately get you closer to Antarctica.
And it's less sea travel.
Yeah. Less risk there.
Man, this is fucking cool.
It is very cool.
It's totally not what Kaiser wanted, but I want to play this now. I'm the Kaiser now. I'm on a roll.
Yeah, this is a really interesting setting and definitely not where I expected it to go, but I love how it turned out. Anything else you guys want to add?
No, just that if you look for the episode with Crab Hitler, you can see what our Cronenberg Hitler looks like.
I'll try to find a link to that too.
Yeah. I just cursed Courtney to search 200 episodes for this link.
And on that note, I do think that's a good place for us to stop. Kaiser, thank you for sending this in. I know it's probably not what you wanted, but we hope you liked it nonetheless. And thank you to John as well for joining us for this one. Hope you had a good time with us.
Hell yeah, fuck yeah. I'll do this all the time. This is fun.
Nice. Could you remind our listeners where they can find you and your content?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you can find me at Jonnie Law on YouTube, and that's JONNIELAW. Do not confuse me with any other Jonnie Laws because I don't need to go into it, but you can see why. And I promise I will start making more content as the holidays pass. But anyway, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, awesome. And remember that if you'd like us to build your world, you can visit worldbuildwithus.com to submit a prompt, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to check out our YouTube channel, we're at worldbuildwithus on there. You can follow, like, subscribe, etc. You can also find us on Twitter at Let's Worldbuild. Or if you'd like to chat with us directly and meet other listeners and see what everybody else thinks about this ridiculous setting, you can join our Discord server with a link for that in the description. And of course, if you're feeling particularly generous like Kaiser, you can donate to us on Patreon at patreon.com/worldbuildwithus. You get a bunch of benefits like a patron-only Discord channel, patron-exclusive episodes, clips of things that get cut, and so on. And a big thank you to all of our patrons for your ongoing support. And that's going to do it for this episode of World Build with Us. Remember that we love you very much, and we're going to get through this together. Until next week.